welcome to How to Build a Creative Business in a Noisy World. I'm Ali Hart, and this series is called the Hindsight series, which is one I've been wanting to do for quite a while, where I interview inspirational people who I know, often who I know and love, who are making waves in the creative industry. And someone who sprung to mind, and I've known for quite a long time, is Grace Atwood. Hi, Grace.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Ali.
It's great to have you. We are in different time zones. So what time is it with you?
It's 10.
10 in the morning, and it is 3 in the afternoon here, Grace. When we would be together, we would often have red wine. So she definitely thought that my coffee was red wine. Did you?
I'm bad at time zones. I was like, is it 5 over there? And it could be before 5 and it would be fine.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. You have a great story to tell, and that's what this whole series is about. Just really spotlighting people and inspiring just by being you, really. Give us a little bit of a summary of your background. You and I know each other through a mutual friend from a long time ago, and until the pandemic, really, I would still get to see you quite often. You would be here, or I would be over in the States. But if you just tell us where you are, where you're from, and a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I grew up on Cape Cod in Massachusetts, and I have lived in Brooklyn, New York for, I've been in Brooklyn for 4 years, but I've been in the New York area for a total of 15 years. And I run a lifestyle blog called The Stripe. I also have an Instagram, and then I have my own podcast called Bad on Paper.
Brilliant. And your journey to get to where you are now, like that's a very like rounded up, very straight answer. So I always talk about with creative businesses, and especially being self-employed, the route is very much zigzag. It's never really straightforward, and one thing can lead to another opportunity. Do you want to tell us a little bit about even whenever, because I know that you were in Sephora and different places. Do you want to tell us a few or where you studied? And
yeah, so I mean, my career has been all over the place. I was a finance major when I was in school, and I minored in corporate communications. And I always was like, I want to be a fashion buyer, because it sounded like shopping for a living. And I was like, I can do that. Like, I love clothes, I love beauty products. This is going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got there, and it was great. The team was amazing. The store was fantastic. But it was literally most of the day I was just working in spreadsheets.
Okay.
And I was okay at that. Like, I was good at it. I just wasn't passionate about it. And then, so this was back in Boston right after school.
Okay.
And then, what happened was Macy's, which was in the US, is the really big department store, bought our department store. So we were all going to lose our jobs.
Okay.
And so I was kind of faced with staying in Massachusetts, and there weren't very many great companies. There was like a few, I would say, like clothing companies that are more for like women in their 50s and 60s.
Okay.
And then there was a few athletic companies, and I'm not really an athlete, so that wasn't really for me. So I made the decision to move to New York and work for a company that had just been acquired by Procter and Gamble. And that was, I would be working in marketing on fragrances, which is what my category had been when I was at Filene's. Okay. And it was very, very scary at the time. Like, I lived in Massachusetts my whole life, went to school outside of Boston, loved Boston, didn't ever see myself leaving. And then I just went for it. And I was like, I'm going to stay for 2 years, okay. 2 years. And then I'm going to come back to Boston. And then I never left.
Yeah. How many years ago was
that? What?
How many years ago was that?
15.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
15.
You thought you wouldn't leave. And then tell me about your so that was in what year was that that you were working then?
It was 2006.
2006, yes, that's whenever Michael and I got married. So yeah, that's 15 years ago. That would make sense. And did you then, in terms of the blogging, we can come to that in a minute, but I talk a lot about work ethic as well. So obviously you were happy to take on different roles and to try different things. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your parents as well and their business?
Yeah, so they had a restaurant growing up, and they were very creative. My mom was always doing craft projects with us and teaching. We would paint and we would do beads and we would make jewelry. We played dress up. We had like a very creative childhood. My dad was a chef, which inherently is a very creative and very demanding profession. And I think I just always saw them running a business, working really, really hard. I actually didn't really aspire to work for myself until I was much older. Like in college, I was like, no, I want to work for a big company and have benefits and health insurance and a 401k and all of those perks. But as I got older, I really appreciated their entrepreneurial tendencies, and it definitely is something that rubbed off on me.
Yeah, and also the longevity of the restaurant as well. Do you remember how many years did they have the restaurant?
Oh my God, I want to say, I think the restaurant was close to 40 years old when they sold it because my
Amazing.
grandfather started it and then they kind of took it over and then they had me a couple years later.
Okay.
And they sold it a couple of years ago. So I think it was close to 40 years old when they sold it. So I think it's a hard business.
Yeah, definitely. And you are one of three. Three, you're the eldest, aren't you?
I
Three girls.
am I am the oldest of three sisters.
And then, so tell me then a little bit about the blogging, how that came about. Because whenever we first met, like we were, both doing, like I think I was doing photography at the time,
Mhm.
and you had started a lifestyle blog, and it was back whenever um like social media now we can come to that, how social media has changed things. But at the time, whenever you were blogging, people read blogs, obviously,
Yeah.
but also majority of people who didn't have Instagram accounts at the time, or Facebook, or were just getting used to it, they didn't understand it. Can you tell me a little bit about the journey, or what inspired you to start, or how that came about alongside your job that you were working in at the time?
Yeah, so like the career stuff continues and I'll just summarize that really quickly. I went to P&G. I was there for about 4 years. Then it
Okay.
was 2008 and or 2009, I don't know, I'm bad at with the math. And I was laid off in the during the recession here.
Hmm.
So then I went to Cody, which was another big marketing company, and I just had this boss that so I was working on nail color and I still remember her making me line up, and I think you know this story. She it was like Devil Wears Prada. She would pull out these bins of light pink, pale pink nail polish and have me categorize them in order of sheerness to like more opaque. So Essie Mademoiselle through ballet slippers, like all, bubble bath. Like I still can't really do light pink on my nails because like I'm a little bit traumatized from that
I
job.
that Yeah.
But it was like the job a million girls would dream for or kill for, like that quote from Devil Wears Prada.
Hmm.
And that I was naming the nail polishes and coming up with the shade names and creating all the displays. And I had my own office. It was like my first time in my life earning six figures. And I was like, it was supposed to be that dream job, but I was so creatively unfulfilled and also just unhappy. I felt like I sat in that box with like, it was, sorry, I'm calling it a box, in my office, which was a box with no light. Like I was getting
Yeah.
no sunlight all day. And like people need sunlight to thrive.
Yeah. And your hours as well were long, weren't they? It was
Yeah,
demanding.
they were very long and they got longer when I went to Bobble Bar, which was the strip.
Okay.
But it wasn't a good fit for me. And so I started this blog as like a creative project. I didn't really tell anyone about it outside of my friends. And like I got really active on Twitter because that was the only social media. And I like
Hmm.
made all these internet friends and connected with all these other bloggers, but I never showed my face and I didn't like show anything about me.
Yeah.
Um, but I would write about like like new things going on or beauty products I liked. It was very like I would make my collages for the blog in Microsoft Paint.
Yeah.
So it certainly was not a very professional endeavor. My boyfriend at the time, who's our mutual friend, um, bought me like a Canon Rebel camera so that I could take like
I remember. Yeah.
somewhat decent photos. Now an iPhone could probably get that same quality, but
Yeah.
it wasn't a great blog at first. It like any project, it got better with time.
Yeah. And consistency.
Yes.
Like, and that was that was the thing, that was one of the things that we bonded over, was people didn't really get it, and but you believed it and it was working. And even the internet friends thing, that's so normal now, whereas at the time, if I remember going to Manchester to meet bloggers that I had met online, and people were like, you're going on your own to meet people who you met online, whereas that's the world as it is now, really. And then did you find it just started to build traction? So when I looked on my own career, the photography was brilliant and fruitful and it was great. But I felt, you're saying about the creativity, it was great for creativity, but it wasn't what I'd trained in, which was the painting. So I literally sold all my equipment one time and just like, this is it, I'm not doing any more
I
photography.
remember when you did, and because I was like, "Oh, when I come over, can you like take some quick pics for my blog?" And she's like, "If you bring your camera."
I know. So that feels very drastic, but it was a way of me cutting like the wheat to the chaff, or whatever, that cutting the wheat from the chaff. You're just getting rid of what the noise was to keep going. Was there a point when you decided, look, this is, the traction's there? I don't know whether it was ads or click through, and you were able to start making money from the blog, and one outweighed the other. Was there a point that happened?
Yeah, so I went to another job after Cody, and I took a pay cut to go there because it was going to be a more creative role.
Okay.
But it was a startup, so I was working a million hours, and it just got to a point where the blog was making more money than the my job at the startup. But I was quite attached to the startup. Like I
Mhm.
just felt like I had put my whole like blood, sweat, and tears and so much work into helping to build it. And I did not want to leave. But I realized my mental health was starting to suffer. Like there was
Yeah.
one weekend. It was in 2015. So I think it was
6 years
20 or
ago, yeah.
2014 because
Okay.
the blog turned 10 in 2020. So 2014 or 2015.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. And I like couldn't get out of bed. I was just so tired, and I was like, I'm not sick, but like my whole body just felt like lead. And I remember I lived in that studio with the lofted bed, which you remember.
Yeah,
And
which was cool for anybody in Northern Ireland who's listening. Like we would look at it and be like, "Wow, this is so cool."
it
But
was
yes, you were
cool. It
doing
was
a
very
lot.
small.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't move. I'm so tired. And that was kind of like a wake up call where I was like, I like need to like make some changes in my life because this is not the life I want to live. Like you can't just only work.
Yeah.
It's not healthy or
And I know that Grace is saying that, but me knowing Grace and being with her, and especially like times whenever there was demands with brands that were working with you, but then you were also like, you literally were working, it was the longest days you can imagine. And you would be like, just give me 10 minutes till I look at this, and then you take a call, like, and it was constant. And then you get up in the morning, go to that job, come back, like very demanding.
yeah. So it just got to be like way too much for one person. And that was before Instagram was even a really big thing. It was really just the blog, and like I was on Instagram like for fun. Now Instagram is like such a big part of what I do and my revenue and everything else.
Yeah.
So very glad that I got that off my plate because it's also freed up space for other things. Like now I have a podcast
Yeah.
and I still have the blog, but my Instagram is growing and I'm working on a lot of stuff on that. So
And so tell me then about your, you don't need to tell about necessarily income or that sort of, but if you were advising someone who thought about this kind of venture, do you separate the blog into the standard? Do you look at it like a product in a way, and then you have the marketing side, the branding? Do you have all that? Because I know that you had an assistant as well who helped with admin too. Do you look at things seasonally, or what's the pattern for your work at the minute?
I plan everything out. I have like a Excel or like a Google Doc. Actually, I don't have Excel on this computer anymore.
Yeah.
I have a Google Doc calendar, and I plan everything separately now. So the podcast, everything's all together, so I can see it as one kind of master picture. But every day there's a slot for blog, Instagram stories now, as that's become such a big thing.
Yeah.
And then the podcast, so I can kind of see like the master picture. So for example, yesterday our podcast was about New Year's intention setting. So I was like, oh, I should make my blog post and like some Instagram stories about New Year's intentions so that it all kind of flows together. Or, on a book club day, I'll make sure that I'm also talking about books on my social media channels. But I've started to see all three things as very separate. Whereas when I first got started, I was just using Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it to drive to the blog. And now the Instagram is its own kind of separate entity.
Isn't it? Social media is, I always say, like, it's really where I've built my own brand, really. And even in terms of number, like I talk about, like, and I know you and I've talked about this before, how like depth over breadth is much more important, because you're saying about stories, and yeah, you might only reach a fraction of the following, but those people are the people that want to be there.
Yeah.
What is your view? Because I just think social media is, I sometimes love it, sometimes I don't know, I don't hate it, but there's times that I have, you always have to protect your own self, how deep you can go into to it. But in terms of a business strategy, I think that it's brilliant. Do you have a view on that as well?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard thing to balance. It's funny, last night for my podcast, we interviewed Elizabeth Gilbert, who did Big Magic and Eat Pray
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, like she's really famous in America, but like I never
Yeah,
know.
I think I've got that book here, actually, the magic one. Yeah,
it's a great book. We're rereading it for my podcast, so you should reread it with us. You can be in our book club.
Thank you.
And we asked her that very question, and she was like, I don't know, because she's like, I want to sell books and I want to connect with my audience, but the best way to get your creative juices flowing is to step away from social media. So she's like, I'm really only on it she has her own book club, which is great. I think it's called Onward, and every month they read a different book by a Black author, female author. So I'm going to start doing her book club too, because I'm definitely trying to read more books by authors of color. And I think she has like the best taste in books, and also such incredible connections, so she can get those interviews with those really big authors.
So that's called Onward, did you say?
Yeah, Onward Book Club.
Okay.
But it's such a hard thing to balance. So I think one thing for me is that I now take Sundays off from Instagram, and I don't post anything. Like, it's Sunday is like, do not look at Instagram. If I find myself checking it, I actually like delete the app from my phone. Because I'm clearly an internet addict.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us are now, isn't it? But I feel exactly the same about the creative side. For me, with painting and with everything, like mine was only a week, but I guess for anybody that's not in the line of work that we do, like a week's quite a long time. For us, like, so for me being off like one full week, it's like you're just not, and it's the same. I had to delete it from the app because it's a habit as well. It's not even like I don't want to see people's stuff. It's just, I wanted to break that habit. So I lift my book to read, or I walk, or I have conversations. So, but then the beauty of the beast is that if we're not on there and people aren't on our content, they'll be on someone else's content.
Yes, exactly. So, but I did, one of my friends is rep by one of the bigger like Instagram agencies or what have you. And she said that their company actually did all this research. And when an influencer or any person who has a large social following takes a day off, as long as they're consistent about it, not only is it fine and it doesn't impact their numbers, the day that they come back, their stats are always higher.
Well, I find that, I'm sure you find that with your huge following.
Yeah, there's this like fear that.
Yeah, well, if you think that it's going to lose everything, isn't it? It's because you're a real person, and we have real fears, and month to month, often you don't know what is going to happen.
Yeah. And with the state of the world, I mean, especially what's happening right now in the US, but you guys have your own stuff too.
Yeah. Or just the fact that we're all in this quarantine lockdown. Like, can you believe the whole world?
Yeah. I know.
Strange. And you then, in motivating yourself, do you have a way that so aside from social media and different things, like, you and I would have taken quite a lot yoga classes together? Are you still yogaing? What would you, or is it like, how do you motivate yourself on all fronts? So work, just self-care or well-being.
Yeah, so I have found I'm much more motivated when I'm not overscheduled. So one thing I've been doing is just like clearing house and not saying yes to anything unless I really want to do it.
Mhm.
The other thing is making sure I move every day.
Thanks for doing this podcast.
Oh, obviously, that's like the easiest thing ever. Um, so making sure I get out and move and get a walk in every day. And also I've gotten really into this woman. Her name's Melissa Wood, and she has this workout program. And I think you would like it actually. You're more like you do a lot of heavy weights. Like you are like fit. I'm like, oh, I like yoga and Pilates and
Well, I
stretching.
used to be. I think I even just posted a picture of my protein shake earlier, and I said at the bottom, you can find more of these on my blog from when I used to be better at this. Like, I'm not as good at the minute. So,
No, we're locked at
Melissa,
Melissa Wood, and all of her workouts are generally under 40 minutes. Like most of them are 20 to 30. And that is like, if you can't find 20 minutes to move, you are doing something wrong.
I know.
So, like, and she's really big with the mom crowd, which I think you probably have a lot of moms that listen to you as well.
Mhm.
And I think that she just does such a good job with balance.
Great.
So,
I'm into Sonata Graca.
I
Sonata
don't know
Graca.
who that is.
She's like really great, but her workouts have been great. But like, I have to get up in the morning at like 5:30 to do them because they're about an hour long.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but tell me then. Well, I just would love to be there with you now, having like a coffee as well. Is that before your lovely coffee or after it?
It honestly, so this is probably bad. I don't have like a real routine. I kind of do it in the middle of the day, which like I wake up and I put my workout clothes on and I can't take them off until I've done my
That's my
workout.
workout. Well, that's good. That's discipline.
So
And do you have a, so dreams? Like I ask people this, and I think that they feel like they should say very specifically, I want this amount of money in the bank account. I don't mean that type of well, it can be whatever dream you want. Some people just want to continue to be content and happy. Other people want to like build a business to a certain. Is there a dream that you have for you? I know that you're moving, which is massive.
yeah, I'm moving in April. So I'm really excited. I'm ready for the next step. I don't know. I love New York. It'll always be my home, but I'm ready.
Good. And for the business, then that will just like dreams, whether for yourself. Do you have any? Well, I'm assuming moving to Charleston's going to tick a box, but
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in writing down all of my goals like every year at the beginning of the year. On
Mhm.
the business front, it's just more growth and more product collaborations. I was really fortunate to work with Amazon this year to design some clothing collections, and that was like the most fun thing I've ever done.
It's amazing.
And I worked with a UK brand actually, it's called Night Tire, to design some sleepwear, and that was the most fun.
Is that still going? How did I miss that? Because my mom just
Uh,
said to me last week, if you want new PJs, is it still going?
I think it's about sold out. They still have a few more sizes left.
Okay.
Um, but I think it's like the last correspondence I had with her. I can send you the link. But
Cool.
she's great. And on the personal side, I really want to buy property in the next year.
Okay.
So those are
Brilliant.
my goals. Yeah.
Isn't it like it's not funny? Isn't it interesting that probably both of our goals would have included travel until lockdown?
God, I miss travel. Like, what are airplanes like?
I know. When you
I
went to Charleston over Christmas, did you fly or were you? And then you were saying you were in quarantine and stuff for 2 weeks, weren't you? So
I did fly and it was a really hard decision, but at the end of the day I have a cat and I don't have a driver's license. So my
yeah,
sister, her husband, her toddler, and her two cats and me and my cat almost rented a big car to drive. And then we were kind of like, this is not a good idea.
yeah,
Like all of our stuff for 6 weeks plus a baby and three animals and three adults in one car for 13 or 14 hours. So we did
yeah.
decide to fly. The policy here is you quarantine for I think 3 days before you get a test, then you get on the plane. when you get back 4 days later, you get another test. And we were all fine. We, my third sister was furious with us and thought that we were going to kill our parents. So,
Oh, whereas I feel like the flying, if I could go somewhere, I might. I don't know, because if you think about it, I get the train sometimes. Like, I guess we're exposed to it anyway. And I've had COVID, and we don't know where I got it. So
yeah, it's hard to say like what is good and bad. I'm of the mind of like, do not go on leisure vacations right now.
yeah,
And I did get a lot of criticism from some members of my audience for traveling, but at the end of the day, we
that's
did
different. That was family, and that,
yeah, we
yeah.
did everything as safely as we could. And I don't want to use the mental health excuse, but I was really suffering this year, and those were the best 6 weeks I've had in a long time.
And you hadn't even seen your parents in about a year, sure you hadn't?
Yeah, yeah.
And do you have any advice for people who would be listening who are, so quite a few of the people that students I would mentor are in a job, and they have a creative business, and they want to get to the stage that you and I got to, where we want this one to fly, the creative one. Do you have any advice for people who are self-employed, or would about becoming, we call it self-employed over here. Do you call it that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you have any advice on that? Good, bad, ugly, positive?
I would say really like get really clear on your gut feeling. I think as women we learn like not to listen to that, but I found that anytime I listen to my gut, it leads me in the right direction. I would say be prepared to just work really hard, but I promise you it will be worth it. Like I made a lot of sacrifices early on so that I could do this, and I never take it for granted. Because like back in the day when I was working like 80 or 90 hours a week, it was worth it to be able to now be self-employed and now be in charge of my own calendar, and I'll never take that for granted.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's about believing the dream, isn't it? Knowing that, because even at the minute, I feel like I'm sort of back to square one with my YouTube has subscribers and everything on it. But because I was focused on other social media, I feel like I'm back to square one with YouTube, but I have to keep thinking, like, I believe the dream. I believe the dream.
and it's also okay to just focus on one or two things at a time. Like you cannot like give yourself fully to like being a mother and doing your paintings and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, like and YouTube. Like let some things go.
Yeah.
And you can always pick them back up later. I'm really always focused on what's bringing me personal joy and what's bringing me money.
Yeah.
And if it's not doing either one of those things, then like let it go.
That's great advice. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Here's an example. We were doing a bunch of live shows for the podcast, and granted, we're locked down, so we can't do them.
Yeah.
But I frankly did not enjoy them. I liked it a little bit, but I didn't like all of the work-related travel, and I didn't like just how it was so much work to book those shows, to book the guests, to book our travel, to try and get our travel comped from brands, but then we would have to be posting and tagging about them all while we were there.
Yeah.
And I just would feel so emotionally drained. And we weren't really profiting from it. But the optics, like people were like, oh, Grace is just like so successful. She's going on tour. It wasn't bringing me joy. It was not making me money. So we're not really we might do more eventually. It could be fun, after the pandemic, I might have a whole new outlook on this. But
well, also it says a lot that you were able to fill those seats, because my big thing about in-person workshops, I know it's not the same as like a live event like that, but if I had 60, because I was doing small venues, but 60 seats, people think that's not very much, but that still means someone has to feel compelled to buy a ticket to go there. And I find that was actually really stressful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, someone is paying money and giving their time to come learn from you or see you talk or have you entertain them. It's a lot. It's stressful. Like we also like maybe got like started thinking almost too big. Like we booked a few venues that were 300 people and we weren't able to sell those out. So
but people don't see that. Sure, they don't either. But I do think everything leads. And if you hadn't have done that, you wouldn't know now that you don't want to do that anymore.
You have to just try it. I'm a big fan of trying as many things as you possibly can and
Mhm.
seeing what the things that you love are and the things that also make money, because we want to be happy, but we also like want our nice shoes.
Exactly. And that is one thing that the business was actually really, really good for me during lockdown, which I can't actually believe. But then I think I suffered a little bit of exhaustion. And then when I got COVID because of that,
Yeah.
but I think what I learned last year was like those things are nice and it's lovely to have the nice things, as you said, but you still have to do the work. You know, when you think some days I would just love someone else to do the work, but that's the beauty of figuring out, I guess, subscription models or different passive incomes, I guess I could say, I don't know.
I need some passive income. I haven't figured that one out yet.
Can you pass it on to me when you get there too? And well, I'll wrap it up because I know that you will have a busy day booked in. But have you? Well, I know you will, which is exciting. What book are you reading right now, Grace? Apart from Big
Oh,
Magic, or
so I'm reading a book called Layla by Colleen Hoover, and it's like a thriller. It's not.
okay,
So I will tell you, you know this about me, but your audience might. My guilty pleasure, like how I unwind, is not reality TV or I don't know, eating junk food or like any of the vices that people have. Mine is like Gone Girl ripoff books. So I love a good thriller. I also try and make
we
sure I read.
also read a ton of so that's why I heard. What's your podcast called again, just so people can look it up too?
Oh, our podcast is Bad on Paper, and we have a monthly book club.
Yeah.
So I'm reading that, but a smart book that I'm reading is called Joyful by
Okay.
Ingrid Patel Lee, and you would love it. It's all about it's. I really recommend it for anyone who's in the design world or an artist. It's all about how objects can bring us joy.
Okay.
And it's like scientifically researched. So you learn about principles like why round objects bring us joy, why symmetry makes people happy. There's just
Right.
it's fascinating, but it's taking me forever to read because I literally sit there and I read it and I highlight and I take notes and like write things down because I'm like, I want to like have this knowledge for my brain, but it's gonna like my mind has become a sieve. Like I'm turning 40 next year and I can't keep anything together.
And we were also talking today. I had another interview earlier on today, and we're talking about just the fog with lockdown. There's a bit of a fog because it's just so bleak.
I think you're completely right. Like I definitely feel like a fog. I don't remember like the first few months of the pandemic. I was like, what happened there? But I was having wine every night.
So was I.
Yeah, I feel like it was the only way to cope because that was when I truly wasn't seeing anyone. Now I'll go for a walk or like walk to a local restaurant and sit outside and
Mhm.
like bundle the hell up. But
Yeah, the first one was really, I think we even, well, I guess if you look at education has changed now, you know, they're better equipped this time around where we're back in lockdown at the minute. And then there's obviously the hope with the vaccine, which is great. But
mhm,
yeah, that first one was just such a shock to the system. We were the same, like it was, we drank lots of wine and then, but the good thing was the weather was a bit better over here. You don't have,
yeah.
you do have your porch, don't you?
Yeah, so one of my little creative projects was I got my porch like all pretty. I have like it's like a street adjacent patio, so it wasn't very nice. And the problem is like anyone on the sidewalk could see in. So I put up like privacy ivy and I put down like an astroturf floor and got some inexpensive furniture that I locked to the fence because people like to take things.
Yeah.
But that saved me. I would just sit out there and read or have like one or two friends over for like a socially distanced patio cocktail.
Oh,
And
lovely.
that
I
really
want
helped.
to come and sit there.
No, and I'm going to be gone by the
And you're
time we
not
can
gonna, I
talk.
know I'm not gonna get there, but that's okay. I'll come to Charleston because I love Charleston.
I have a pool in my Charleston place. So,
Yeah, I spent a summer there with our friend, our mutual friend Emma as well.
yeah.
I've just remembered now. I'll have to get Emma on here too to talk.
Oh my God, her
Talking about.
business is incredible.
I know she's doing so well. Well, thank you so much. I just love seeing your face as well.
I know, I really miss you.
And for inspiring, because that is the thing with this hindsight series, is just looking back on people's lives and the direction they've taken and how they've got to where they are. But I really look forward to airing this, and I cannot wait until I see you again in person. But for everyone else, you can find Grace on Grace Atwood. Oh, she's taking a photo. On
That's what I was
Grace.
doing. I have something to post to the social.
Oh, sorry. Yes, on Grace, Grace.Atwood.
What are we doing?
This is if people are to find you on social.
My Instagram is at Grace Atwood. My blog is thestripe.com. My podcast is Bad on Paper. It's also got its own Instagram. And that's my stuff.
That is it. Well, it's been so lovely. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this series. And if you just want to hit the subscribe, then you will get all the other interviews as well. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you for joining me and for watching now that I'm on my YouTube too. Thank you for joining me, Grace.
This was great. Thanks for having me.
I will see you all on the other side.